Hey Jake, what's going on?
What's up, Kurt? How are you?
So I got something here shiny and new. I just realized this morning I'm starting to print out these turbo teasers, our first turbo teaser, and I'm gonna have to send you some. So expect to see some in the mail.
Well, I printed one out myself, but yeah, if your printer's better, I'll take a look. Yeah,
Well,
so
as a let's call it an official teaser, printing teaser. So I'm handling the home printed version of our teaser, which is two 11 by 17 cream colored printouts. It's the first 6 pages of Turbo Pit Fighter. We got this really great classic cover, which is based on a sketch you did over 20 years ago. Some really cool back matter in here, and of course 6 pages of just block rocking beats right here. It's bagged and boarded. So anybody that purchases, the link is in the description. And we are also looking for other indies, comic creators that are willing to do a trade with us. So there'll be some information down there and another link for a form to fill out over at our warehouse, my website, kurtbrugel.com. But other than that, man, it's been a couple months since we took on the turbo teaser and getting it accomplished, and we have got it accomplished, and now we're back in the saddle. I'm going to be inking pages 7 through 12 um, to encapsulate our second teaser, but you're on pages 15 or something on issue 2 penciling. So why don't you give us a breakdown of what you got going on your side with Turbo, and I can get back to inking.
yeah, right. So we have our first teaser done. It's only the first 6 pages, so we're working, to finish this book, and it's a lot of work. So I'm on page 15 of issue 2, and I just kind of finished it. This is where Turbo goes into flashback after a long chase scene with the berserkers out on the road. They're that was like a 9 page sequence, and those pages will look something like this here. Um, but they had to kill or incapacitate every one of the pursuers, and then now they get a break, and so that's when Turbo goes back into flashback, and we go back here to young Turbo, and I have this kind of like shift here where she's being taken into the orphanage by Sister Ray, and there's kind of like all these other nameless, faceless other orphans here, and they're mostly going to be female, I think, but this this little dialogue that they have is like Turbo getting on the same page with Sister Ray about being part of a violent resistance, and then here Turbo, she feels the touch of Sister Ray on her head when she's getting this haircut, and then that kind of transports us to another flashback scene where she's here with Embra in the pharmacy, and that kind of picks up where our first flashback sequence was in page 1, 2, and 3, maybe 4, and then this is going to take us into this whole other adventure here where Turbo is about to get the package. Here we see that they're getting in trouble. Ember is like really pushing up on Turbo here, thinks Turbo's a boy, and we're gonna have. Let me pan down a little bit, and then here in this scene, um, her father busts in, which is a pretty quick turnaround because here he is handling the radioactive peas inside this case, and then here he's busted in, and catching Amber. Amber's going to be in big trouble here, because she was supposed to be watching the cameras at all times, and I think there's actually an alarm that's going to be going off. One thing I noticed from this page, which we just finished here, and some of the earlier pages, is that the earlier pages I think were not as crowded. I'm looking at this page and it's got a lot on here, plus a lot of word balloons. And I think that's because the story is getting juicier. So I'm gonna have to be aware of this as I lay out the next page. Um, maybe not to maybe not try not to make it as cramped as this. If you can explain something with a word balloon or a caption instead of a whole panel, you can save a lot of time as far as pushing the story along. But I'm just about to get to the next part here, and that must be our fans. Um,
Yeah.
I'm just about to get to the next part here, and so this is going to be, I think, this is page 15, and I'm kind of confused here. I might have gotten a little bit messed up on the sequencing because I have these little page numbers that are crossed out, and page 15. So Amber's about to get smacked, but I think that's supposed to be page 16, and I might be running a little bit behind here because we have a very tight schedule here to wrap this up in 32 pages. So I'm just pulling out this notebook here where I have my notes, and I'm trying to find if I laid these out before, or if not, I have to now get a page and kind of like rough it out from the thumbnails to this next action sequence that's happening. And we've been working on the turbo teaser for so long that I kind of lost the continuity of where I was at with this page. But I'm looking, and yeah, so these are, okay, so I think I got it. Yeah, here it is. So here's page 16. I think what I did was I took page 15 and I labeled it really large here so that I wouldn't be screwed up later. And I kind of packed a lot in here. This was the rough layout. I had squeezed in all of this stuff about Sister Ray in here. This wasn't originally here, right? This is where Turbo got touched on the face by Embra, and she got transported away to the current time when Trophy Girl is saying, "Wake up!" And so this is where we broke away, and so now we were coming back here, but this is why this page is so cramped, because I had 4 panels here, right? And I put in 1, 2, 3, 4 because I said, hey, let's tie this in to Turbo, just showing up at the orphanage with her father's blood on her face. That ties us back into issue 1. And her kind of like daydreaming and getting transported away back to Embra. So now we can rejoin the action here, and I just want to make sure that my thumbnails are jiving with these numbered pages, because this is going to be page 16, and we're just going to see Turbo on the outside. So Turbo's going to get kind of rushed out of the pharmacy in the back door here, and we're just going to see in silhouette the father's going to be smacking Ember around, so that we can have this panel here where she's retracing her steps and she sees all of the wasteland. And this is where Turbo's going to find out about the package, that she's transporting this package back to the orphanage. And when she gets to the orphanage here, it's going to be on fire. There's going to be a whole melee. So now young Turbo is going to be in this action sequence, page 17. And let's see. Put page 17, and then I think we don't have any roughs. we just have thumbnails. So after page 17. So yeah, folks, this is how I do it, laying out a comic. I laid out page 25 here. And the reason why this is out of sequence so bad is because we did move things around. We have changed a couple of times here. Here's page 29 or 30, and then yeah. So these thumbnails are the roadmap, and I don't have any full page roughs. But yeah, I'm about to lay out a new page, and oh yeah, so I'll be doing pages 16 and 17 before I have to worry about laying out a new page rough. But I just want to go back here because I was a little concerned that my numbering was off. So yeah, that's it. You know, the story's going to get good here because there's going to be this cool scene where there's a battle at the orphanage where they're getting invaded by the RM troops, and that's all going to be here. So this is this, and I have this labeled as 16, but yeah, look, there's a mistake here. It's labeled 15. So I'm going to have to suck up a page here somewhere because
Are you saying you're gonna have to? Where is this other page gonna go?
I'm gonna have to combine
after 15.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to combine two of these pages, or we'll have to kick the storytelling over to the next issue. This so yeah, just real quick, what's going on here is this is gonna be where I'm about to start. Where Turbo's on the outside of the pharmacy, and Amber's getting smacked around. She's going to be viewing the carnage, and then she's going to be coming here on page 16 to see this. So this is what I have labeled as 17. Yeah, I mean, I could take two pages and combine them if I have to. But yeah, so this is all gonna have to be. I'm gonna have to really look at all this. This is gonna be where she comes to the orphanage. We're gonna introduce Dishon Slaver. He's gonna get executed. We're gonna see Sister Ray is in bondage, tied up at the orphanage chapel. Turbo comes in, machine gun blasting. I see even here in the thumbnail there's a lot of dialogue, so I won't have to deal with that. But this is going to take us to 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. And then 22, 23, that's when Sister Ray pulls out the curtain rods that have the radioactive peas, and she crosses the rods, which put them in contact. That causes a giant explosion, like a mushroom cloud explosion. Turbo was just getting catapulted into the air with her glider wings, so she can get away. And we refer to the children being in kind of like this escape train where there's like a water flume. We don't see them though, but yeah, that's when we transition back to the current day, and Turbo's going to be meeting the mechanic. And so we have pages 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32. And then from page 29 to 32, that's 4 pages. We're going to introduce the unbeknownst one. And I did lay that out. So this will be 29. Oh, so this could be 30. Maybe that's a saving grace here. If we only have 3 pages for that, that'll save us. We just have to renumber things. If this is 29, so bleak, barren landscape. A truck is rumbling over the hills. They're headed to the Big Deals Nationals. We look inside and we see this big pit fighter and his two. These are like Latino characters, and they're in the two his two sidekicks. There's a female, and this guy with this pompadour, and then they're assailed by um, a spiked ball on a chain being thrust through the window. This is when we see the unbeknownst one here. This is just like a scene out of the Road Warrior. There's going to be a fight. Her name is going to be Phaedra. That's cool. Or Osteria. Wait, which one is it? So yeah, I have 3 pages here. 1, 2, 3. So I guess this will work. If this is page 29, if this is page 30, 31, 32, and it ends here, the unbeknownst one will rip apart the face of the pit fighter, and then that's it. This will be the end of the comic right here. As they head out to the Big Deal Nationals. So
that's issue 2. That's
yeah,
issue 2, and we were looking at 30 pages.
32.
2, yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, so 32 plus 4 is the the covers can be the 4 pages full color on the outside, 1 color on the inside, 32 pages of story. Yeah, that's what was needed here to squeeze all of this in. And I think it's going to be a squeeze from here on out because there's a lot of story to pack in. But if we do it, economically, so I think this will be page 30. I'm going to take a big note to self here. 30. This will be 31, and this will be 32. Oops, and this will allow me to kick all these numbers back so that this will be 29 here, and then we're fine. So I'm just gonna have to revise this one more time. 29, 28, 27, 26, 25, 24, 23. This is what happens, folks. 22, 21, 20, 19, 18, 17, and 16. And now I can start. Yeah, you don't want to paint yourself into a corner and mess up and not have that worked out. But yeah, how many pages are in issue 1, Kurt? 26, 28?
28.
Yeah, so you always want to have multiples of 4 for the printer. Offset printing, it's always got to be multiples of 4, otherwise you got a big problem on your hand. I mean, actually, multiples of 8.
You got a big old white sheet of paper.
Yeah, you waste paper.
The press keeps pressing.
Yeah, actually, multiples of 8 is better, but what can you do? Because there will be a sheet. So what we might do is send some promo to be printed, and then you could end up getting some promo sheets, and have them cut separately, and all right, yeah, or they could be it could be any kind of other content, but if I don't know if it's digital presses, I don't know if they're still doing it the same way where it strictly needs to be paginated with 8 up. So yeah, I'm going to move on. I put a little bit of backgrounds in each panel here, and I think we can put page 15 in the books and start page 16, where we're in the backyard of the we're in the back entrance of the pharmacy. So after long last, moving on, and here are the pages from 1 to 15. Always got to keep these handy because you never know, like, oh, what does that van look like? What does that door look like? What did that case look like? I'm wondering here, Kurt, when you're inking this, see this case
Yeah,
that they're working in? Are you gonna be able to make some kind of like
yeah.
shiny effect that makes this look like glass? Yeah, you got all those tricks up your sleeve, right?
Glass, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. I already did
All
it
right.
once.
Yeah,
Matter of
because
fact, I have page 6 right here next to me because page 7, some of the ways I have the characters shaded or, coloring on stuff. But she's Trophy Girl's in a glass case. So I use
right.
some fanciness there. So, and that's in one of the episodes, one of the past episodes. I can't think of it, but we have a past episode where I divulge how I made that happen. But I'll have to do it again there.
Yeah, yeah. So how about the page you're working on now? I see you got a lot of great tones going there.
Yeah, that's really what I'm hammering out right now. Like I
So you're
said,
gonna be
trying to reestablish the the pace I had pre teaser. So
yeah. Yeah, it is
we'll
it
get it. This is gonna be a tough episode because there's gonna be a lot of silence at least on my side because like I said, I'm trying to figure out what the hell I did or how I did it, and the only way to do it since we only have Sundays to be working on this. Just to remind everybody, we might come off as professional cartoonists, but we're definitely only doing this every Sunday. So, with that being said, you got to kind of take some shortcuts or take some chances. So,
yeah. Well, right. I mean that's what we're doing. We're hanging out, we're doing some pages. You know,
yep.
I was watching that it was not the cartoonist kayfabe, but it was these other YouTuber that was going over it was total clickbait. It was like find out why Rob Liefeld got to be so famous even though he's not a good artist, or that his art is so weird, but how did he get to be so big and famous and everything? And so, I didn't even click on it. It was just like the autoplay where where it's just like playing anyway,
Yeah.
and that's an interesting feature because I guess my hands were tied up and I was doing other things. But um, I was listening to it all the way deep into it, and they get to this part where he kind of has this friendly rivalry with the Spawn guy, McFarlane, right? And Lee Field's a little
Todd
younger than him.
McFarlane, yeah.
Yeah, and they talk about like staying on the phone for hours and hours and hours talking while they were both working, you know, and this is like the 80s, and you can just picture it like, wow, if that would have been nowadays, they would have been podcasting that shit, right? This is exactly what we're doing.
Yeah.
But
Exactly. Yeah.
apparently we're the first ones to think of it, which is odd because you have people podcasting every little thing. Somebody's like combing their hair. Oh, I'm making brownies. I'm repotting a plant. They're podcasting everything you've ever seen, but you don't see any
Yeah.
collaborators working on a comic that are podcasting it until now. So I guess we're pioneers in the space. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's kind of curious why up to this point two guys like us are the ones to start doing it. I suspect one of the things I find in independent comics is that it seems like a lot of people want to be a do it all yourself illusion. I wrote, I penciled, I inked, I lettered, I colored, I published, I printed, I. Where from the beginning, comic books, not cartoon strips, because those probably most definitely were done, on a daily basis by a single individual. But they were studios, like Iger Studios, which was where
Yeah.
Will Eisner and who's
Yep.
the other Iger guy, They just rented a
That was the
space on a floor in a building and
in Manhattan.
paid them in yeah, yeah. But they paid them like in ham sandwiches and like $2 a day, and they just, everything from coming up with character ideas and story plotting and penciling and even into the Marvel method where you have the crusty bunker, where there's a group of individuals who are just there to um, finish comics, but more importantly, make sure it all looks like a Marvel comic. And then the other part of
Yeah.
it too, you have more experience than I. I have little to zero experience in starting a band. I did in college, but lasted, I think, 2 weeks. Um, but when you put creative people together, at first it could be really, really fun and exciting. But then you get down to decisions, and one guy says yellow and the other guy says purple. And the guy who said purple says, no, it has to be that way because of this. And the guy who says yellow says, no, it has to be because.
Right. Well, that's why you
And
have an
then you
editor.
end up in the
The
world of
editor.
compromise. You have to compromise.
Yeah, that's why you have an editor. The editor is the one with all the final editorial decisions, and that's why titles are important. But there was also in Marvel's history there was a very loose collaboration that they did out of kind of like speed necessity, the necessity, to speed. And it's funny, I watched the Stanley documentary on Disney Plus, on or Marvel, whatever. And it's a lot of stuff that you saw that is already online for free. It's mostly him speaking, about his history, for a long time, blow by blow, and that's already available on YouTube on a previous documentary that somebody threw together. But Disney Plus or Marvel took that and they made it into a much bigger budget documentary that they just released, and with like all these animated sequences, like kind of like showing young Jack and young Stan and everything. When they do those like animations, and it just kind of carries the story. But it's the same voiceovers that I'd already heard on YouTube. Just digging into Stan's history, and it explains a lot. They say that Stan didn't really think much of what he was doing some of the time. Especially before you get to the Marvel era. I mean, I don't know if he was downplaying it because he wanted to make it seem so special what they did after 1961, but
Oh,
he was.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, but he was saying like, oh yeah, we were just chasing trends, and he was saying it doesn't matter what the page is like, it's going to be Katie Keene or whatever, or whatever the character is,
Yeah, yeah.
like who cares, right? Like he treated it, he refers to it, so like, you know, like casually or so blasé, as to really like denigrate it. And he also talks about like when he was at parties, he wouldn't, he would tell people he was a writer, and he wouldn't want them to know that he was a comic book writer. Um, but that's basically how it worked. If you're in a time crunch, you don't script out every line of dialogue. You just say, hey, Fantastic Four is going to battle Annihilus, and Human Torch is going to have a romantic thread with Crystal, and the Thing is going to have a meltdown in a city store. All right, go run, and then bring back 22 pages. And that's exactly what happened. And it was up to Jack Kirby or Steve Ditko or Don Heck or whoever was laying out these pages to do it all. And not all of them liked the Marvel method. Not all of them were as good as Jack Kirby. I mean, it was really a Jack Kirby thing and a Steve Ditko thing. um but we're working on it a little differently. Every I guess team up every team has its own way of working it. We're not doing like scripting. I'm kind of like doing these thumbnails that go to roughs, and then we're talking about the dialogue, and I'm just like sounding things off with you, and hey, how about use that word there or this, we're just kind of like pulling it together as we go, and that's what we're doing here. We're documenting our process. So I think this is kind of new and special, but I'm just a little surprised that nobody else is doing this actually, in this day, in this age of technology, you know. We're
Yeah,
here making.
I'm curious to see as people as the word spreads about the two of us, especially with um, our turbo teaser getting out there in the hands of others. It will be interesting to see what comes along. Claiming this is only for the topic of conversation is what Jake's really getting into, and I'm backing him up. Is we're not trying to be the only ones. We're just curious of right now. For all that we've been looking at, we seem to be the only ones. So then why?
Yeah, I mean, if I was
We
working on a
encourage others too to do it.
yeah, if I was working on a comic with a partner or a collaborator, um, and I saw this and I was like, oh wow, I didn't think of it, I would do it immediately, right?
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
So, yeah, and maybe somebody has done it before. I don't know. This is something that's weird for me because you know I'm a creative person, and sometimes I have a free hour, and you know you also kind of yearn for that kind of collaboration with others, even if you're working on like I'm working on my own page. No one's telling me what to write here. No one's telling me how to lay it out, but you still, I really really just appreciate having you here on my headphones, and we're talking about all kinds of different things, and so I'm not just like sitting in a lonely room, doing my art. I'm kind of like hanging out. Like you keep saying like, oh, we're going to Jake's place, right? Remember when you're kids and you're gonna do some
Yeah,
comics and stuff?
hanging out with Jake. I'm in.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Well,
it's that.
that's how it was. That was how that history speaking. To remind people, that's how it was. I always went to you in New York. I'm down in the Wilmington, Delaware area, and I always made the trip up, and then I would spend like I don't know, sometimes like 2 or 3 days up with you, and that's where we would get a lot of the, let's say, business out of the way. Plotting things we're going to do. Not everything we did was comic books. I don't want to allude everybody to that, but we definitely would spend a majority of our trying to figure out how to do a comic or what. But yeah, it always felt like I was going to Jake's house. So, and
So
I'm
yeah,
glad
I mean,
I'm
I
able to
remember
relive
going after
this.
school, reading comics, making comics. It's all good. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's kind of what we're doing here, folks. And it might seem like a very tedious process. Like I keep saying, that it would be more engaging for the average YouTube viewer if we just like took what we're doing and like sped it up, like 5 times faster, made it into a half an hour, just use some selected cuts, you know, because everything is like a short attention span, YouTube world now, right? Like flipping through videos and scrolling through. But we're purposely not doing that. We're purposely like, doing this in real time. You could hear all the uhs and ums, and you can see what it takes, to lay out a comic and to, just keep pushing, onto the next panel, onto the next page, and keep the ball rolling. So this is the process.
Well, the exciting thing for me is I really like the idea of us just having the documentation
Yeah.
of this experience. And I think that's something uh, that's being overlooked, as well as people not collaborating. on comics specifically. I'm sure some people out there are going to bring us into light of individuals who are working on projects together creatively, and please share them. I'd love to see that. But it is something that we have hundreds of hours of footage that we'll have for our Stanley version documentary
Yeah.
that somebody else can go through and edit it instead of me. That's one of the reasons we're doing it this way, is that it's a pretty much what we're throwing up is a raw file of what we're recording here in my studio, through right now we're using Riverside FM. So
Yeah, that's the software
yeah,
they
I
use.
mean,
Yeah.
I think the other thing too is the it's the figuring it out part. We're figuring things out, having been out of the let's say industry, if you will, comic book wise. We're figuring things out, but we're sticking to our guns on some of the things that we just profoundly believe in. One of them is our comic book teaser. Even more specifically, is I would say it's about 92% all done by hand. There's a little bit of digital um, uh, uh, editing in Photoshop that we did. Even our lettering, God bless us, is is hand lettered. Go and watch the 6 to 7 hours of episode recordings that we did on on figuring out how to get from Quark Express on a 13-year-old laptop
13?
into
Are you kidding me?
um,
No, my current laptop is 13 years old. No, my
the
that
one
that
you
white
were the one you were working with on Quark. That
that
white one.
white.
How old was that white one?
I know that version of Quark is from the 90s.
But you had a laptop in the 90s. I didn't get a laptop till 2000
Well, no, it was a
that I could work on as an artist.
no, I was working on. I was using it as a I was using it on a desktop, but I put it on a laptop as soon as I got a laptop. Yeah, I mean, I
Okay,
think this
okay, okay.
white I think
All
this
right.
white MacBook is my first laptop. I believe,
Oh,
but
okay.
but um but it's hella old. Yeah, I mean, it's got to be more than 20 years old. You know that I had a
But the
Mac
other thing too,
in 1980. I had a Mac in 1986, and it was
what a Mac.
it was $3,500 for a 1 meg of RAM Mac Plus that it ran like Adobe Illustrator, Aldous Freehand. You needed floppy disks. I'm old, but I was also very early into Mac software, Mac graphics, and Apple had the best stuff. If you had laser printers revolutionized the world. Young people need to know. They might not know, but
Yeah, yeah, that was.
when people have the
Yeah, they,
ability to.
they 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 need to know, but they don't give a shit. So
Well, I'm sure they take it
don't
all
worry
for
about it.
granted, but
Sure.
as far as like the history of the world, before people had printers in their home, high quality laser printers at home, you had to go to a professional typesetter or a professional print shop and get your artwork photographed by a camera, and then make something called a Velox if you wanted it printed out, or you had to go to a printer and print it out offset. I mean, obviously Xerox machines were around, but you needed an original in order to make copies. So,
So the thing,
that
the thing that's interesting that you bring it up, because you have brought up that process many a times, and I'm sure you're going to do it again and again. But the thing about Jake and I, as we worked together through the 90s and on our own, desktop publishing was a learned technical skill. And then, therefore, you were hired to put magazine or catalog type material together. Now, in spare time, just like Jake and I are doing now, and because Jake worked for a printing press, we were always hedging our time, extra time, if you will, to put together something as a comic book. But the thing was, is that we had all of the skills, and we were working in the desktop publishing industry, to make that happen. So that does create a really good clarity on who Jake and Kurt were back in the 90s working together, in clarifying the not just being comic book artists, but also just having the skill set needed at that time to make any kind of printed material in magazine or catalog format.
Yeah, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but when I graduated high school, I went to a not a community college, but a technical college. It was a 2 year college called New York City Technical College. It was in Brooklyn, and I signed up for a program called graphics, which taught you all about printing and paper making and the whole industry theretofore. But after I finished the first year, they said, "Oh, guess what? We are eliminating this major because the industry is changing so quickly." And I was like, "Well, wait a minute. I have a year of credits. What about all these classes?" And they said, "Well, we'll recognize some of the credits and everything, but you'll have to switch majors if you're going to stay here. And the closest thing that's remaining is a major
Oh
called."
wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah. I graduated high school in '85, and
Damn.
then so I go to this CUNY College, City University of New York College, because it was affordable, and my dad said he'll pay if I go to CUNY. I think the tuition was only like 4,000 a year or something, and so I'm studying graphics, which is like, you know, it's not just graphic design, but it's also paper making, printing, the history of all this stuff, and then you know what I'm talking about, like phototypositors. Um, you know, um, they were training you basically to work at a print, not a printing plant, but an output place, but all of the machines were being phased out. So for my second year, I had to sign up for a major called art and advertising design. And it was very different because there you were learning how to do ad copy, layout, ad designs, layouts, paste ups, photography in the dark room. There was illustration classes, and that kind of stuff. But I was already behind, and so I ended up going to a 2 year college for 3 years. And the reason is because things were changing so rapidly. And then wait, but it gets better. At the end of the third year, so now you go June '85 I graduate high school, and then June '86 I finished my first year. June '87 I finished my second year. June '88 I finished my third year of a 2 year college because I had a year of graphics and a year and 2 years of art and advertising design. And when I was done, they were like, "Okay, everyone, you're going out into the world. You're going out and starting your careers, and all that. But we have one last thing to show you."
Good luck.
And they wheeled in a Mac on a cart, and all the graduates were there. The whole cohort was like, I don't know, 20 of us, 15 of us, and one guy had a laptop and he was like messing around with it, and it was like, "Ooh, what's that?" But then they wheeled in a Mac. I don't even know if it was a Mac. It might have been like a PC or whatever. But it was like, "Look, this is going to replace everything we just taught you. Now, good luck, and head out to work." And that was literally what happened to me. And I said to myself, holy jeez, I got to learn this stuff. And my job back then in the late 80s, early 90s was I started working at a neon sign company. I was a layout artist, and I was doing all lettering. That's why I became like such a stickler for lettering. They would be like, do it over. Like the letters have to be perfectly straight, uniform, consistent, blah blah blah. So I'm working for this guy, this crazy like ex hippie guy who inherited his father's neon company. His whole business is going down the tubes because he's bouncing checks everywhere and he can't make payroll and all this. So I quickly changed from the layout guy to the office manager, and I got the whole business like back up on his feet. And I made a deal with the guy because he had a client that paid him, he owed him thousands of dollars for a neon job, and he paid him by giving him a Mac Plus, and it was worth about $3,500 new. It had 1 meg of RAM and a little mouse and a floppy disk and a tiny little screen. It's like maybe like a 8-inch screen or something, whatever it was. People can look up the Mac Plus if you want to see a relic. So I said, I need that. I got to make a deal with you. And so I made a deal with him and I worked it off. And I said, wait a minute, I need more RAM because it only has 512K of RAM. So I bought the other 512K of RAM. Guess how much? That's
thousand
right.
bucks.
That's right. $1,500. That's right.
Yeah, I do remember that.
So I maxed it out. I maxed it out at 1 meg of RAM, and I had over $3,000 into it. But I went crazy. I was doing layouts. I was doing lettering. I was using Adobe Illustrator, and then I got an early Adobe Photoshop. It wasn't Adobe Photoshop. It was Knoll software. The first version of it. And I was learning how to retouch. I was learning how to do all this stuff. And the computers, luckily started getting better and better and cheaper and cheaper. I forget what my second Mac was. I think it was like an LC2 or whatever, those flat ones. They used to call them pizza box Macs. And then they started getting the Mac towers. I had the G3 tower, the G4 tower. You had to get a separate monitor. There were these giant, big, fat monitors. And then the iMacs came in, the little bubble iMacs came in, and they started making them cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, and then the laptop. But I was a very early adopter, very early adopter. So that's why I come into this with a really with an appreciation of how amazing it is that Kurt can print out a comic in his office and sell them high quality, bagged and boarded, to customers. I love that, because it eliminates so many gatekeepers. You used to have a publisher, and then or you used to have a printer, and you had a distributor, right? And all of these different things. So now two guys can just do this on their
So
own.
with that being said, and as we're getting back to our original flow before the turbo teaser number one, we were keeping these under 45 minutes. They're bite sized, as I always call them, because we want to let anybody watching who's gotten this far to get back to reading comic books, making them if they will. The turbo teaser is now officially ready for purchase. Links it below. If you are an independent creator and you have a comic book printed, there's going to be a form I'll make a link to where you can fill that out. And just as a heads up, you'll have to send 2 copies, one down to me and one up to Jake. So we can have a conversation about your comic book and our comic book and the indie comic book market and everything that surrounds it. But that's all I have, Jake. Let's let these people get on with their lives. What do you got on the heads out?
Yeah, not just if you're a creator, but if you have a podcast, if you're a fan, reviewer, whatever, writer, it doesn't have to be an artist. So yeah, this just let's start to create the network. So see you next Sunday, Kurt.
See you next Sunday, Jake.
All right, man.